Now live, we've got Howdy Partner with Stackery. Take it away, Marie.
Hey, thanks, Ann. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Howdy Partner Special reInvent Edition. So I know that we've been seeing some pretty awesome content, and we get to hang out with Farah and Chase today to talk a little bit about some of the announcements that we saw and how Stackery can be a part of that. So those who are joining us for the first time, Howdy Partner is a show that got kicked off this year where we got to work with partners. They've been showing us demos. We've been talking through their different solutions that can help developers and non-technical folks alike as they continue to architect on AWS. So I'll get started with a round of intros and then we'll kick it off. So my name is Marie. I'm a partner solutions architect with AWS. I've been here for 4.5 years and have loved getting the opportunity to host Howdy Partner and happy to be here with Stackery today. So I'm going to pass it over to Hanara.
Hi guys, I'm Hanara. I am also a partner solution architect here at AWS, and I basically just help partners take a look at their architecture and validate it, make sure everyone's following best practices. And I've been here for a little over a year now, and super pleased to be joined with Stackery today. We're going to be talking serverless, specifically Lambda and containers with Farah and Chase. So you guys want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Farah Campbell. I am the Alliances and Ecosystem Director at Stackery, and somehow I'm also an AWS serverless hero. And I'm really excited to be here with everyone today. reInvent is definitely one of my very favorite times of the year, and all these announcements have definitely got me excited.
And I'm Chase Douglas. I'm the CTO and co-founder at Stackery. And what we do is we help AWS customers design, develop, and deliver serverless applications, modern applications on top of AWS using best practices. And we make it easy and we make it fun to do so. So we're having a lot of fun. And honestly, reInvent is one of the most exciting and exhilarating times of the year for us and our team.
Awesome. Yeah, so Farah, do you want to jump in and tell us a little bit about what you guys have been doing this week with all the reInvent announcements?
Yes. Our planning started last week where we had kind of a roundup. So Chase, myself, our VP of Engineering and Product, Ryan Coleman, and then our CEO, Tim Zonka, all have different tracks that we're writing about weekly around serverless. We also have stackery.io/reInvent. And if you're on a mobile phone, you can use this cute little AR and set up a virtual booth. If you do that and tweet it to us, we'll send you some Stackery swag. We also have an Alexa challenge, which has been really fun to see people complete. So if you actually deploy an Alexa app using Stackery and tweet us a screenshot, we'll send you an Echo and $100 in AWS credits. It's definitely been an exciting week, and we've had a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun with all the announcements, but specifically, we were really excited to be a launch partner for the Docker container image that just launched.
Awesome. And so, Chase, do you want to jump in and tell us a little bit about what a container images for Lambda does, or what you guys get to do with that with Stackery, and why would I want to use that?
Yeah, so it was a really exciting announcement that Andy Jassy made in his keynote yesterday, and that the serverless team at AWS has been working long and hard at. We've fortunately been able to come along for the ride. The concept behind this is, for a long time, when you wanted to use Lambda to write your business logic for your applications or your glue logic for your ETL jobs, whatever it might be, you had to develop tooling, use tooling, and processes that would package your code as a zip archive, which is nothing, against a zip archive. But there are many organizations that have built up sophisticated processes around Docker images for their non-serverless workloads. So you would have these organizations that, on the one hand, have a very mature system for these Docker images, and then someone would come along and say, we want to use serverless, but to do so, we need to develop different ways of doing things. So these organizations now, with the container image format for Lambda, have the ability to package up their source code, their business logic that they want to run inside of Lambda-based functions using the Docker container format. So one of the things that this enables is an ability to use tools like security scanning vendors that can peer into Docker container images to look for vulnerabilities. That can now be utilized as part of your Lambda function runtime processes.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know I kind of skipped over and I should have jumped back to you, Farah, but you said, what was it like to be a launch partner with Docker images?
Well, it's actually really exciting. It's just kind of the feedback loop that you get, working with AWS. And so when we have issues, working directly with the product manager and the engineers to sort that out. And really, it's just fun, to be a part of something that's so big and that, so many people are so excited about. And it makes it even more fun when you see people like Kelsey Hightower, using it to, on other systems like Cloud Run. So yeah, it's fun for us to be a partner during big announcements like this.
One of the things I love doing as a partner is sitting in this interesting position where we get to think about, what do our customers need and what do they use, and what is AWS enabling, and how do we put those two things together? And the thing I'm excited about here is where AWS has really made this foundational capability possible. We then get to bring to bear environment management, parameterization, things that allow for some customers who maybe they want to use the benefits of container images, where you can have package sizes up to 10 gigabytes, where before you were limited to zip packages of only up to 250 megabytes. You now can do that. And if you haven't used Docker images in the past, using the Stackery, we make it super easy that when you add in a Lambda function, say that you want it to be a Docker image format, we'll go through and scaffold into a CloudFormation template everything that you need, from an ECR repository to a code build job to build your image, to triggers to make sure that it all gets set up and built at deployment time. Or if you're someone who already has these mechanisms for building up images, we make it really easy for you to say, okay, where is the image going to be set for production versus where is it for QA and test environments? How do you parameterize this across environments? So that's the really exciting part for us, is being able to marry the raw power of what AWS is able to provide with the additional tooling and abstractions that we layer on top as a partner.
Yeah, no, that was great. And I think that it's cool to hear, especially having a partner that was a launch partner on Howdy Partner. It's great to kind of hear a little bit about the behind the scenes experience and how that work kind of goes into how AWS does their launches. So thanks for that kind of insider information. Hanara, did you want to?
Hopefully I'm not in trouble for sharing anything like that. Hopefully I didn't share any too much insider information. But hey, I think we have a request for Chase to put on the hat. I'm seeing it in the chat. I don't know if anybody else
Farah.
does that.
Farah, I know you did this. All right. In an earlier episode of Howdy Partner, I got out a really cheesy hat, like a 10-gallon hat kind of thing. And and now AM and other friendly folks at AWS, I stress the word friendly, love to see me in this hat. Yeehaw.
How people know that they're on a Howdy Partner episode? How else would they know?
I suppose that's a very fair point. Very fair point.
Yeah. I mean, it was the inception of the show was by someone obviously that lives in Texas. So all of us West Coasters have to play into that a little bit.
Well, last time Chase was on this, I think it was with AM and Eric. I think I got him like a cap to make him bald, so he matched everybody else. It's been really fun. We've had a lot of fun on these. We've had a lot of fun on the Twitch channels with all of you. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, definitely, Chase, you can put it on and put it off just as you are feeling led.
All right, I'll just do it randomly.
Yeah.
Here we go. All right, time for a bit.
It's like a nice prop to have. It's like a security blanket. If you ever don't know what to say, just kind of fix it up.
It's like just do this instead.
The good luck. The good luck. Awesome. So that I love to go down rabbit holes, but I want to make sure that we cover a little bit more about what we have been seeing this week. But yeah, we saw lots of news about surrounding services and features to build modern applications. So I don't know which one of you wants to take that, but I would love to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, one of the things that I saw I'm really excited about is Aurora Serverless V2. So I think it was at the last reInvent, if I remember correctly, that the first version was announced. And what it is it gives you an ability to run a relational database system, MySQL or Postgres compatible, in a way that auto scales the compute part of your database. Aurora itself has always auto-scaled the storage part, but Aurora Serverless gives you the auto-scaling for the compute part. And this is really powerful for a couple of different reasons. One is that, sure, it auto-scales when your load increases, it can scale with you, but also it means that when you have many different environments that you have to manage, production, staging, test, or even individual developers' environments, now you've got an ability to set parameters that say things like, maybe for a developer environment where they go home at 5 p.m., they come back 9 a.m. to do some work, why should this cluster be running the entire time that they're not working with it? And so it can auto-scale down to 0 and come back up within minutes. The really exciting thing about V2 that's in preview is that it can scale up instead of on the time frame of taking a minute or two, as Aurora Serverless does today. It can scale up in fractions of a second. So now a lot of these workloads that are great for the theory of an Aurora Serverless cluster, but could not actually work because the scaling was too slow up to this point, now can actually be moved into Aurora Serverless because the scaling is so strong under the hood. The other aspect I love about it is it will have global replication capabilities. So as a partner, advanced tier partner with AWS, as Hanara does a lot of evaluations of partners, one of the things that we have to meet is requirements around disaster recovery. What happens if even like an entire region all of a sudden had issues for our service and we needed to run in another region? We have to have ways of backing up our databases and copying snapshots over to other regions and standing them back up, all within a very limited amount of time. And having a global version of Aurora Serverless gives us the opportunity to have that ready to go no matter what region we're operating in. It makes disaster recovery stories so much easier. Similarly, the backtrack capabilities that it will have, so that you can at any point in time say, something terrible just happened. We need to go back to the way the database was yesterday. That's now a really easy dial that you can set to say, go back to this point in time, instead of managing snapshots that you would have to pick from and replace an instance with.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up. I think a lot of people, at least working with partners over the year, don't usually like to talk about their disaster recovery plan, or that's kind of the last thing on the list of things to do. And it is a really important piece of the puzzle. Like you said, being able to scale quickly across a number of geos. And so thanks for bringing that piece up there.
So another question I have for you guys, a little reInvent question, is what are some things that were not in Andy's keynote that are really big news for you guys?
One of the things that I've seen people talk about is the S3 read after write consistency. I've heard things on Twitter where people have said ginormous amounts of man hours have gone into this, and it's a very technical bit, which is probably why it didn't come up in the keynote yesterday. But it really simplifies a lot of workloads people have for replicating data between S3 buckets, for being able to analyze data as it gets updated. So that's one of the things that I found really exciting, is this idea that behind the scenes, AWS is always working to improve the experience for customers. And in this case, without any changes for customers at all. It just is magically rolling out and available for everyone. I saw someone tweet about how they just threw a very complex system into the trash bin today that was simply about managing S3 object consistency that no longer is necessary now.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
No longer
That's a great
have to
story.
wait for those reads and writes. Yeah, Farah, do you have any other news that you're really excited about?
I was really excited to hear about the Amplify UI being extended. I just think that, it helps others, getting started with the cloud. I think that opens the doors for many. So that was a big one. But for me, it's really about all the excitement and seeing everything that everybody's built and that's kind of like waited to show the world. It's so invigorating to me. It just kind of like re-inspires me to, want to do more and to want to learn more. I was watching a talk this morning about Equinox Media and how, they had to, through COVID, change their strategy, and they ended up building out a new system using serverless technologies in 6 months. And this is something that they projected that would have taken 18 months to 2 years previously. And those types of things are just really exciting, because you see the teams are, happy, they're finding those wins. And, that's one of the things I really love about reInvent is, just getting to hear everybody's wins, the things that people have been working on throughout the year and what they're excited about.
No, that's awesome. And I'm going to take a quick moment. For those of you that are just joining us, we are live with Stackery on Howdy Partner reInvent Edition. Thank you, Chase. That's where the howdy comes from, that hat right there.
I will never live down this hat, apparently.
I know you shouldn't have never. I mean, it's going to live with you throughout all these episodes forever. So, but yeah, so this show happens Mondays and Wednesdays from 2 to 4 Pacific time. But obviously during reInvent, we have a couple different things up our sleeve for you. So definitely tune in for the next 3 weeks and keep an eye out for next year as well. So I want to dive back in with you guys and hear more about what what is going to help people kind of either with the announcements or even the stuff that you guys are doing at Stackery? What's going to help people modernize their apps the most? And I know you guys just presented a couple examples of what people are already doing, but would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that when you look at them in isolation, they're cool. But when you start to look at how they can piece together, they can add to each other, it unlocks a lot of possibilities. So one of the things that I immediately saw through the keynote yesterday was, what if you took your existing .NET applications that run API services? What if you had them already packaged in a Docker image and you added Lambda's new runtime interface into that Docker image so that it knows how to interface between an API gateway request and how a .NET Framework application expects a request to come in. So now you've got a containerized but serverless version of your .NET application running. And then you add in the possibility of maybe it talks to a SQL server, but now with Babelfish, you're actually able to have the real database server behind the scenes be an Aurora cluster. And then on top of that, that could be an Aurora serverless cluster. Now all of a sudden you could move from a really costly and rigid environment for like an on-premise installation of your Microsoft Windows .NET Framework apps that you've been wondering, how do we modernize and get this to be scalable? You can quickly piece these three things together and modernize your application without changing hardly any of your code under the covers. And moving it onto AWS, you'd get the scalability, and with the serverless offerings, you get the cost savings. It's very similar to what we've seen some of our customers like MasterStream do, and how they refactored a .NET application running in the data center using Stackery. They refactored it onto a serverless approach on AWS and cut their costs by like 80 or 90% from what it costs to just do a lift and shift, and increase their scalability. So that's a really, really interesting aspect to when you watch all these announcements, realize like, oh, they can add on top of each other. To enable a lot of interesting new capabilities.
Yeah, you brought up container images for Lambda. If you're just joining us, we spoke a little bit about this at the beginning. I honestly think this is very exciting because I think there's always a conversation of, do I do Fargate or do I do Lambda? Do I put my microservices here or there? So I think we want to make this friendly for anyone who is watching. Farah or Chase, would you mind talking through like why someone would want to develop using a container image rather than just your basic function or a whole program on an EC2 instance?
Yeah, I think some of it comes down to the life cycle of the container that you want to run. There are times when you want the life cycle of your container to persist between requests. And this can be because your application has states that interacts with maybe the local file system, the /temp space maybe. And some of those applications are going to be easier to run with persistent containers that you would be able to use when you're using ECS Fargate. So that could be a reason why you would want to go with ECS Fargate. Another reason might be if your container takes a really long amount of time to start and become available, maybe because it has to synchronize states from elsewhere. That said, if you're able to package your application inside of a container, but it doesn't take very long for it to start up. Or potentially you can investigate provision concurrency, where AWS will ensure that they're keeping a number of your containers warm for you inside of AWS Lambda. Then that gives you a scalability capability that is much beyond what ECS Fargate is able to provide. ECS Fargate can scale up over time, but it scales on the order of minutes, let's say, whereas Lambda can scale in milliseconds and can run thousands of containers in parallel without breaking a sweat. So if you can architect it to where your applications start up in a reasonable amount of time, or provision concurrency makes sense for you, then I think running it on Lambda is going to be an amazing way to lower your cost and to be more scalable at the same time.
Yeah, I think even with the upgrade of how big of a file or package you can put into Lambda, in your blog, you also mentioned that you can start doing even ML workloads, which is huge because ML workloads are insanely expensive. And sometimes they don't need persistent storage. You just need it to give you an answer to a couple of data sets that you give it. So this is actually really big news. Do you think the computation that Lambda provides will still offer those machine learning workloads the same kind of power that they would if they were running it on like a pure GPU instance?
Yeah, this is a really interesting aspect. Some of our customers have created kind of jury-rigged solutions for running AI ML workloads on top of Lambda, because even in a jury-rigged state, it's still faster or cheaper to run it that way than to use, bespoke high-performance computing EC2 servers, let's say. Having the ability to have 10 gigabyte images where the image contains itself the data set that you need to work on, that gives the ability to open up workload capabilities that really weren't easily possible before. On top of that, last week in a pre-event announcement, Lambda announced the ability for you to use, I think it's something like AVX or AVRX, I'm not quite as familiar, but there's specific processor extensions, that CPU extensions you're able to use to do higher performing workloads for floating point and integer operations. And so that's perfect for AI and ML. And someone else said on Twitter yesterday, it's kind of like AWS is truly making Lambda capable of working for high performance computing, cluster style computing workloads. That's really exciting.
Yeah, I was running something on Lambda last month, and I was just trying to get a basic database computation, and I added way too many libraries, and it just freaked out on me, and I had to spin up an EC2. So definitely will make life easier if I want to remain serverless. Well, you guys have been such a successful partner, partnering with Docker, especially for this new release. Do you guys have any, sorry, I am blanking at the moment. What has your experience been in the APN, and what do you think attributed to your success?
Well, our experience has been quite amazing, actually. It's been very easy, working with our partner development manager, and also, working with the solution architect that helps us to, helps us with go-to-market activities. It helps us with our messaging, helps us with, verticals and target markets that we might be able to, go after. It's actually I really enjoy the relationship that we've had with AWS. It's kind of been my baby since I started at Stackery, and being able to talk or having the ability to talk to the product managers or the engineers that with the different features that you're working on, or being able to work with our partner development manager on getting our well architected reviews and just knowing what programs are right for us. Which competencies we should target has been incredibly helpful, because there's so much. The partner ecosystem is huge, and there's so many different programs and different things that we could take advantage of. It's been just really helpful to have somebody that helps us to, streamline our focus. Because for me, I just kind of want to be a part of everything.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to our friends Serge, Marina, and Nelson, who have done a great job of being our counterparts on the AWS side.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's great to hear your guys' experience. And you guys, I think you mentioned it earlier, but you are an advanced tier partner. We should have shared that at the beginning, but it's not an easy feat to get there. So awesome work, and we really enjoy working with you guys.
We also have our DevOps competency, and then we're also a Lambda service ready partner and a Linux or ready on Linux 2.
Amazon Linux 2. Yep.
Yep. No, which is amazing. Those are not easy designations to get. So amazing job.
But again, it's been really great to have our partner develop. We would have known to even look for, some of these, and just having the ability to have like these be, given to us, and then, working with different teams to make sure that, we're giving the right information. The response times are just really fast. It's honestly been, like I said, it's been really, really fun.
Yeah. And I promise we didn't plant that for all of that positive response. But thank you. We appreciate it. Awesome. Well, I know we were kind of jumping through because I know we wanted to touch on a few points, but definitely, was there anything that we missed that you wanted to circle back around from kind of the launches or keynotes?
Ooh, so I just say that if you haven't watched some of the tracks in the serverless track, they're definitely, there's a lot of good information there. One that's coming up that I'm very excited to watch is how the Registers of Scotland is migrating 400 years of land deeds. That's coming up later this week. But again, there's so much success. Lego, Sheen Bristles, and Danilo, they talk about how Lego is now even optimizing even more, accelerating even more with serverless. But it's not just about the technology, it's also about the teams and how they've grown, and the teams expanded, but not only with their career acceleration, but their involvement in the community. Many of them are out speaking and really becoming thought leaders in this space. And it's just really great to see, again, like seeing some of these people that have this narrowed focus of what they're trying to enable for the business and the success they're able to find once they do that.
I'd say the things that I've loved seeing as well are, especially from the containers group, the emphasis around what can we do that is community building, whether it is the public ECR repositories that can help stand in to give people access to images, base images for their applications. Now that Docker Hub has rate limits that make it a little bit more challenging to build applications on top of. The open source efforts around the control planes for ECS and EKS, and the Babelfish project, which I mentioned earlier, seeing all of that being done in an open way, in a community-driven way, I think is honestly, I love being a part of the community, because when you are a part of a community, you just have that sense that you're in this together, you're having fun together, and that's, I mean, who would want to work any other way? Honestly, that drives me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that's a great segue to plug the rest of our show later today. So obviously reInvent Edition, after we're here with Stackery, we'll actually be chatting with an APN ambassador who'll talk about more of that community aspect that you discussed, Chase. So thanks for that plant as well. Just helping me out along the way. I appreciate it.
I guarantee you, I had no idea what was on the Twitch schedule.
No,
I haven't had enough time
great.
keeping the official reInvent schedule straight.
I know. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, what are some things that we should look forward to or look out for as you guys close out 2020 and into 2021? Any insider secrets or anything that Stackery is working on?
Well, maybe steering clear of roadmap secrets.
Mm-hmm.
I might say that this is a time of year where a lot of people do their planning. They do their planning for the next year, both budgetarily, but also just project-wise. And so what is it that your team is going to be taking on? And now may be the right time to think through, is it going to make sense for us to modernize our applications? And if so, what's the architectural choices we're going to make there? How can we approach this in a way that is going to last for the long term and give us the benefits of the latest and greatest that AWS can offer? Or maybe if it's a new project that's spinning up, how is that going to be hosted? How is that going to be run? What tools are you going to choose? And if you're interested to learn more, about what we see from our existing customers, what we see as partners with AWS, and how people are being successful running the most modern applications possible on top of AWS. We have great ways for you to schedule demos with us. We'll even send you some instant coffee, some local Portland, Oregon instant coffee. If you schedule a demo with us, you can go
Farrah's shaking her head. Farrah's shaking her head.
I don't think it's instant coffee. I think it's just really good, like Portland roasted coffee.
Oh, even
beans.
better. I misunderstood. Even better. Real coffee, good coffee.
And a mug.
Yeah. Go to stackery.io/reinvent, and you'll see on the right side, there's a block where you can schedule a demo. And those demos happen to be with yours truly. And be happy to talk about the latest and greatest AWS is shipping and how people are being successful with them.
No, that's great. I actually might sign up for the coffee. I'm kidding.
You should. It's actually a really, really good coffee.
And then also coffee.
And then also we also have that challenge. Well, it's not a challenge. It's just that if you do it, you get $100 in AWS credits. But you follow along with that and deploy an Alexa app using Stackery, and that's it. And we'll send you $100 in AWS credits.
That's great. Yeah, you guys have a lot of great things going on, and it sounded like earlier when you were talking, Farrah, there's a lot of swag out there up for grabs as well.
There is. So there's a number of ways to get it. Again, you can use on your mobile phone. You can use the AR and send us a picture of the virtual booth. There's also the Stackery Twitter chats that we're doing on December 16th, where we'll be giving away some swag. And if anybody does, take a picture on their mobile phone, if you want to copy Chase or I, will make sure that swag gets sent out right away. And then, Stackery Twitter chats on December 16th. It's at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll be online chatting about everything we've learned about serverless in the 3 weeks. But also know that there's more coming now in January, it sounds like. But yeah, we're really excited to chat with everybody about what they've learned, what they're excited for, and what they're looking forward to implementing.
Yeah, you guys should definitely, everyone listening, hop on that before I take all that swag, because I'm opening these links and making a note for myself right now.
I know.
Also, I should say that if you love Water Avenue coffee and want some, we may be the only way to get it, because we found out last week after we ordered our supplies that they were out online. So if that's your jazz, we may be the only way for you to get some soon.
Off the market. I love it. That's great.
Well planned.
Sounds like we need to get some Stackery hats, Chase. That needs to, looks like that needs to be the new thing.
Yeah, replace the cowboy hat. I know. How have you been feeling? Have you been feeling empowered with that cowboy hat on the entire episode?
I've been feeling silly, is what I have to say. But yes, as it is Howdy Partner, and earlier in the episode, folks badgered me here until I put it on. I figured I must oblige. So yeah, for those who joined late.
Badgered is an overstatement, I think.
No, and I definitely think that hopefully next year we'll all be in person for reInvent. So I think the hat definitely needs to make an appearance.
We'll see. We'll see.
Have a booth that's just called Chase Hats.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, normally this is a question we ask in our regular Howdy Partner episodes, but I know we dove pretty deep into kind of the work that you guys are doing and how it interlocks with the launches that we've been seeing. But someone who's brand new to Stackery, what would you tell them?
I mean, honestly, we don't need to tell people who are new to Stackery too much. They're able to take our tutorials, take our preloaded quick starts, and get going and have fun. A lot of people actually see us as an educational tool, figuring out how CloudFormation works, how different AWS services work. So I think what I would more say is, if you're wondering, how do I get started in the AWS ecosystem, or maybe I've figured out how to point and click in the management console, but I'm not sure how to do what I've done in a professional, repeatable way, Stackery is a great way for learning that. So give us a try. All it takes is a login. It's free for individual users to use it for their projects. Whether it's side projects, whether it's a POC at work, but it's a great way to learn how to build applications using what AWS calls the well-architected framework for building scalable and reliable apps.
No, that was great. And yeah, I think that that's the biggest thing. I think when people are jumping in is the accessibility. And so it sounds like this is a great place to start. But I know we're kind of hitting that time point there, but I wanted to make sure, Farah, if you wanted to go over all of the ways that people can engage with Stackery over the next few weeks. I know that you guys are pushing out a lot of content and doing a lot. So I want to make sure, and I think our ghost host who's on the line can also share the links as we kind of talk through these things.
Yeah, so if you go to Stackery /reInvent, you will see basically we have everything housed there, and we'll have a number of blog posts that are wrapping up all the content for the week. You can click there to go to the sign up to get a demo and get the free coffee and the Stackery mug, and not instant coffee. On our blog is where you will be able to find the tutorial for the Alexa skills credits. And then again on stackery.io/reinvent, that is where we have a link to the tweets on December 16th, which will be a lot of fun. Oh, and I guess that one other thing that I forgot to announce is that I'm also speaking with my coworker, Danielle Heberlein, at the Datadog conference next week at Serverless Bits and Pieces, and we are doing Serverless Mythbusters, and that's on December 8th.
One of the things I love that I'll point out is if you go to our stacker.io/reinvent page, it's myself, it's Farah, it's Tim, and it's Ryan on our team, but we're all writing posts about what we're seeing from different perspectives. So I'm focusing on what are architectural patterns that you are learning about, that people are talking about from reInvent. Farah is focusing on serverless success stories. Tim is writing about how to adopt modern application development practices within enterprises. And Ryan, who has an amazing background from his days at Puppet Labs and now here at Stackery, is focusing on DevOps practices to help people ship software the best way possible. And so you can subscribe to like one of our feeds. You can subscribe to all of our feeds if you want. But it's a great way to get content just for what you're looking for, depending on who you are.
No, that's great. Thanks, Chase. Yeah, and thanks for taking the time. I know it's obviously part of the work that you do, but I think that it's really helpful to have that digestible content available to kind of see what's going on, because we're getting hit from all sides with everything coming out. So it's great to have a trusted partner to kind of go to hear what's going on. So yeah, we're just at about time. So if there's any parting words, but then, you can jump to our fake sign off today, because we're signing off but signing back on. So if either of you had parting words, we can open the floor for that, and then jump to our sign off.
I just want to say thank you for having us here today. It's always fun to hang out with anybody from AWS. It's always fun to, it's actually, I was very nervous to do this Twitch stream, but it was a lot of fun. And then I hope that everybody's enjoying reInvent and, taking the time to, watch the sessions and, connect with others while there.
Yeah, I'll echo that. I love reInvent. I wish it were in person. Again, we'll be there again next year, I'm sure. But there's excitement. There's so much excitement. And even as partners, we get some visibility into some of the launches before reInvent, but not everything. And it's really fun to see all the amazing stuff that AWS does throughout the year and just culminates in this conference. It's great.
Yeah, no, and the feeling is mutual with you, Farah, and Stackery. You guys are an awesome partner to work with. You make our jobs really easy, and just your excitement around AWS and just the ways that you guys are innovating year after year, and sometimes month after month. It feels like we just wanted to thank you for being on the show. But yeah, I don't know if you remember the sign-offs, Chase, but I feel like you have the hat, so you might need to be the one that kind of facilitates our sign-off. But it is a see you in a few minutes sign-off. But our words or our phrases that we use is giddy up, y'all come back now, or happy trails. So what are we thinking today?
I'm thinking y'all come back now, you hear, because there's a lot of great stuff coming on like minutes later. So
yeah.
In fact, don't even leave, honestly.
Yeah, I like that we even got the hat tilt going on there.
Well, if you got it, you got to use it at least. So.
Yeah. So Chase, do you want to take us out then?
All right. Well, y'all come back now, and we'll see you at the next edition of Howdy Partner.
Awesome. Thank you, Chase. Everyone, please stay put, and we'll have some fun guests coming up next.
Okay, so I'm crashing your party. I know I wasn't invited, but I'm here. You can't stop me because I'm controlling the stream actually behind the scenes. So this is Howdy
Hey,
Partner.
we're not supposed to tell people that.
Oh,
The whole
sorry.
Wizard of Oz thing.
I'm the ghost host. It's me. It's me, the ghost host. Wait, where Chase and Farah? I wanted to say hi. Did I just miss them?
Yeah, you just missed them. You totally missed the hat and everything. He was representing Texas for you.
Wow. Okay. Well, did his hat say Vans?
No,
Didn't.
not as cool. Not as cool.
Okay. Well, no accounting for taste, right? So I wanted to jump on because the next few episodes of Howdy Partner are going to be just like this. We're going to have up front some guests and then a little break in between. And then we're going to have another guest. We get 2 guests per Howdy Partner during reInvent. I mean, it's insane, right?
Double the fun.
Yeah. Which gum was that? Was that Wrigley's?
I probably.
Can't remember. Anyway, so we're going to have John Topper join us here in just a few moments. He is our APN ambassador for this episode. And Hanara and Marie, you all are going to get to interview him now. You did such a great job with Chase and Farah, and I will get out of your hair. Okay? So
Awesome.
cool. We'll put that be right back slide here. Stick around just a few minutes while we get John set up, and we can't wait. See you in just a moment. And live again, it's Howdy Partner, back at it with Marie. Go ahead, Marie.
Hey, everyone, welcome back. And to those who are just joining, welcome to Howdy Partner reInvent edition. So for those of you that know the Howdy Partner show, we've been doing this all year, Mondays and Wednesdays from 2 to 4 p.m. Pacific time, but we have a special reInvent edition during the 3 weeks of reInvent. So still be sure to join Mondays and Wednesdays. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, Howdy Partner is for technical folks and non-technical folks alike. It's just a place where we can hear from partners, hear the cool stuff they're doing, how they're working with AWS. And then we actually have a special edition now where we get to hear from John, who's a part of our APN Ambassador program. So I'll just quickly reintroduce myself for those who recently joined, but my name is Marie and I'm a Partner Solutions Architect with AWS based out of Seattle. Been with AWS for about 4.5 years now and can't get enough of it. So I'm going to hand it off to Hanara.
Hi guys, I'm Hanara. I am also a Partner Solutions Architect at AWS, and I've been here for about over a year now. I help do validations for our partners, make sure everyone's following best practices here at AWS. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by John Topper, one of our APN ambassadors. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes, I'm John. I'm the CEO, founder, CTO, sort of general person who does things at the Scale Factory.
No big deal.
We're an APN advanced consulting partner. We've been in the APN for about maybe 4 or 5 years. 5 years, I think, at this point. But we've been going as a company for about 11. So we've been all in on AWS for the last half decade and having a lot of fun with it. My particular interest is sort of architecture mainly, we don't have any particular specialism in ML or any of the sort of the new shiny stuff. It's all about good practice and building systems that work properly and can be operated. So that's broadly what we do.
Yeah, we'd love to know about your experience in the APN Ambassador program, but for those of you who don't know, could you give a quick little spiel about what the APN Ambassador program is?
Yeah, so the Ambassador Program, I think was started just before last year's reInvent. Certainly I was invited to join back then. The ambassadors are a group of people around the world who are working for APN partners and who are active in the community. So I do events. So I'm personally involved in the AWS User Group UK, which is the largest UK AWS user group, and I also run events for CTOs and those sorts of people here in London, where I am now at 11 o'clock at night, which is why I might look a little bit bleary-eyed. But I also sort of speak at conferences and blog and that sort of thing. So those are the types of things that the ambassadors do. We submit our outputs for review essentially, and there's a sort of scoring system. So we're all competing in a friendly way with each other for the top spot on there. I'm not anywhere near the top spot. I think I'm 12th in the EMEA region because I also run a business as well as doing those other things.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, and full disclosure, so this is actually probably throwing myself under the bus, but I just heard about the APN Ambassadors program this year. And so want to tell us a little bit about how they picked you or how you jumped in? And I know you do a ton of meetup groups and that sort of thing. And so how did you even get started in that?
Yeah, it was somebody from so I think that there are a group of in each region there are AWS employees who are part of the ambassador program, but sort of as a side gig. That's not their main job. And Matthias, who's based out of I think the Netherlands, got in touch through our partner development manager actually, or my PDM sort of proposed that I'd be a good person to speak to. So it was an invitation-based system, and I don't actually know how the ambassador program is growing at the moment. It might be through referral, or maybe it's still a bit more kind of people from Amazon reaching out to say, oh, thanks for your kind of community work. Would you like to join us? thing. So yeah, it felt pretty good. It's like nice to be recognised, and because it was immediately before reInvent last year, there were some nice perks. There was a preview of some of the launches that were coming up that was run for a whole day, with people coming and giving sort of previews of their talks, which allowed us to prepare our own kind of takes on it for blogging and so forth. That didn't happen this year, unfortunately. There were concerns about security with this being a remote conference this time, but that was a good perk last year, and also the ability to skip the line for the keynotes as well, with some designated seating out the front of the audience along with the heroes. So I was able to walk past a pile of people and wave a badge and go, "I'm an ambassador, let me in," and just sort of skip all the queuing, which was particularly useful because there's a lot of queuing at a physical reInvent. Not so much this year, but plenty then.
I know you're overselling this. Everyone on this stream is going to now sign up to be an ambassador, because skipping the lines is definitely worth it.
Very exclusive.
No, that's awesome. And I'm glad you mentioned kind of, obviously you're based in London, but kind of your work as a partner in EMEA. Do you want to tell us, I know you've done a lot. So I'm happy to list the things that I know about you, but I'd love to hear a little bit from you about kind of those accomplishments you guys have reached as a partner.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess the biggest thing that we're known for, certainly within the AWS kind of account management ecosystem, is well architected. We were invited to join well architected in preview back in April 2018, I think it was. Our PDM got in touch and offered the opportunity to do that. That was back when the well architected tool didn't exist in the console. It was a particularly janky Excel spreadsheet full of horrifying macros and all sorts of other weird and wonderful formulas, and so we went out and ran well architected reviews with customers sort of on that basis before it was more broadly introduced to the ecosystem, and since then we've run over 250 reviews. We're a small business, there are 21 of us in total, and I believe we may actually have done more of those reviews in EMEA than any other partner, although no one's publishing those results, so I can't back that up with raw facts from the well architected program, I'm afraid, but that's what I'm told. So we've got a really sort of, it's a pretty unique perspective. I think you get to see when you see a lot of workloads, you get to see the patterns, you get to see what people are likely to be doing right, likely to be doing wrong. The patterns allow you to kind of build mechanisms for remediating common faults in a fairly sort of reusable way. So we've helped a lot of businesses sort out security rules and IAM permissions and that sort of stuff. We've helped a number of businesses sort of make better choices in how they're deploying their databases and things like that. But the biggest sort of thing that we see is lack of operational thinking is the sort of main pattern. People don't really. I think everyone's an optimist. I think that they all believe that the systems that they're building are just going to stay up, or that Amazon is magically, or AWS is magically sort of keeping everything alive, which is true to an extent, but often there's no sort of plan for security incident response or run books or playbooks or those sorts of things. We really see that missing. So that's an area that we're kind of looking at in our consultancy work. Other things that we've done, we were a launch partner in the SaaS competency in, I think, February this year. Certainly it was coincident with everything else that started happening this year. So I got a trophy sent to my home rather than to the office, and we looking back on this year, I think 90% of our work with customers this year has been with SaaS businesses. So it's a massive area for us. So it's great to be involved in that program at launch and be one of the logos up on the screen when that was first announced. So good stuff there. We're also an Immersion Day partner, so we can run Immersion Days. And we are in the process of applying for our security competency. So we've got a real concentration on the security practice in our organization. I set a challenge for the team to go and get me a bunch of security specialism certs at the beginning of the year. I think we've got maybe 2 more to get before the end of this month. So if any of my team are watching, you've still got exams to do. Come on. We're really sort of knocking down the security stuff. We see that as a major area that that's important, but that people are often sort of getting wrong or overlooking or just not really thinking about.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it sounds like you hold your team to a high bar, which is awesome. And it sounds like it works out. You guys have accomplished a lot as a partner.
Yeah,
so.
I think I'd say we're very efficient. We punch above our weight because we can get quite a lot of stuff done. We're very because we're nimble. We can move quickly. It's easy for us to adopt programs like well architected and so forth. We don't have to sort of run it through a change board and wait 6 months to get a budgetary approval or something. I can just say, let's go and do that. And that's the thing that we go and do, which is quite satisfying.
Yeah, that's really great to hear from someone who can help with security. I find it all the time whenever I'm validating and looking at partners' architectures or anyone's architecture. There's always that missing piece of security sometimes because it's not really your everyday concern. You're thinking about serving your requests. And sometimes people think of security as like a roadblock that they have to accomplish, and people just want to move as fast as possible. So knowing that they can work with partners like you and the Scale Factory and know that they can get through those requirements is definitely good to know.
I think that the balance of security and compliance against progress and agility is the thing that I think we do particularly well at. We sort of started doing this a while ago. We have a customer in the pharmaceutical space, so they do they collect data from patients in the event that the medicines are causing an effect that they're not supposed to, and their environment is very tightly regulated. There's obviously personally identifiable data in there because it's medical stuff. Their sort of description of the worst case scenario is, for example, a well-known celebrity. I mean, I think they use David Beckham in the stories that they talk about, but David Beckham perhaps is taking Viagra for his gentleman's problems and has an adverse reaction. That data ends up in their system and then leaks through some breach, and now the papers all know that David Beckham is taking a little blue pill. That's a worst case scenario for them. So a lot of that industry was very much about sort of slow moving processes that involve getting a wet ink signature on a piece of paper to prove that you've thought about the change adequately. And we built CI/CD pipeline with all of the controls around it that allow them to see what's going on and kind of put gates in place to deploy their stuff without the need for somebody with grey hair and a clipboard to sign something off. And they've moving a lot quicker and saving money as a result, which is important stuff, I think. The other thing I think that's going on in the security landscape is that it's sort of like the DevOps world where we sort of went from thinking about deployment as a separate consideration that other people deal with. I think that's becoming much more true of security now as well. So developers seem to have an appetite for thinking about security. The conversation and infrastructure in general. Actually, I think 5 years ago we were building platforms for people because they didn't know themselves how to do that, and today we help people build their own platforms because they do have an appetite for doing that, and they want to do that, and they're capable of doing so. So they sort of lean on us for architectural guidance and sort of help with the tricky stuff. but they're building their own platforms with our assistance, which is much more satisfying for them. I think now developers are thinking the same about security, and so they're moving monitoring tools for security into their CI pipelines. Tools like Sneak, for example, which are helping them kind of look for vulnerabilities in the software that they're building, and that's all happening as part of the story about delivering their platform, and that's all been built in from an architecture point forwards. It's not an afterthought. You're not painting security and operations on. You're thinking about it as a first class citizen, which I think is the important change.
Yeah, everyone's new developer logo was probably like, what would you do if David Beckham was your customer, and then just start moving faster. Oh, cool. Have you been able to participate in any of the reInvent talks or listen in onto any broadcasts?
Yeah, I tend to keep an eye on the keynotes for the most part. I think that's where the interesting stuff happens. I think the value of working with a partner like us in a sort of consultancy model is that we go and collect that information, we synthesize it, and we take it to the client and say, this release of the 200 or 300 that came out of reInvent, this one is relevant for you, and this is why. So I sit in on the keynotes. I live tweet along with them, which is part of my sort of community engagement, which also helps me pay attention and keep up with what's going on. In terms of the other talks, my reInvent experience in physical reInvent land, it really is about meeting people and the hallway track and catching up with I mean, we're based in London. A lot of the people at the top of the programs we're involved in are in Seattle usually, and so reInvent is a good opportunity for us to get in front of those people. Last time I was talking a lot about things like well architected and how that program's going and where it's going next year and so forth. So that's generally my reInvent experience. Isn't queuing to see talks. It's not queuing to get into the keynotes, and then a lot of kind of meeting people and making friends.
Even with your really cool pass, I would just take advantage of that.
No, you can, the pass only works for the keynotes. You can't jump the queues of the actual talk.
Okay, yeah. No,
I tend to find that I tend to find that I learn more quickly than people deliver on a stage. So if I'm going to be watching video content, it's usually afterwards and maybe at a slightly higher speed so that I can take the information in at my speed. I otherwise find it a little slow. But the wandering around, meeting people, bumping into often there are people that I see at reInvent who I know from London, but I haven't actually seen all year, and we sort of end up meeting in Vegas, which is the worst place in America, by the way. It's a terrible place to go, but it's nice to be at reInvent. It's not necessarily nice to be in Vegas.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that reInvent's definitely Vegas is Vegas as always, but reInvent's just a really cool place. We're all there together. I feel the same way. Granted, London's a lot further, but sometimes I work with someone all year and they're based in Seattle and they're just across the city, and I meet them for the first time at reInvent. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be there next year. But was there any cool launches or anything that got you excited about the work that you guys are doing at Scale Factory, and how some of those launches will affect that moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, Chase actually covered quite a lot of the things that I was pretty excited by. The S3 strong consistency guarantee stuff is it's one of those things that's really easy to say, and it's quite a sort of easy thing to understand as a concept. I mean, a lot of the teams that we worked with actually didn't know that S3 was eventually consistent. They had a load of bugs in their app as a result of it. But now that those have gone away overnight, and it's very straightforward to say S3 now has strong consistency guarantees, but those words belie the mammoth effort that must have gone into actually, wrestling CAP theorem into making that work like that is quite impressive. So a really sort of significant engineering achievement at that kind of scale, boiled down to this thing's just on now. Good luck, have fun. Like it's quite something. The one of the things that I guess is I don't like I'm not one for the showy launches, right? I was in reInvent 2016 when they wheeled a big snowmobile onto the stage, which was, okay, great, but I'm not going to be using a snowmobile in most of my customer engagements for the most part. So the kind of big shiny things don't really kind of do it for me. It's the little things, the stuff that that is kind of impactful but without being showy. So things like the new GP3 ABS volumes, right? That's going to have not just necessarily an impact on performance, but a massive impact on price for customers. There are people who've over provisioned their ABS volumes on GP2 so that they get a higher number of IOPS, which they get as a sort of function of the size of the volume. And now with GP3, they don't need that, so they can scale it down. It's cheaper per gigabyte as well, and so there's this sort of big impact on cost just through kind of a different disk type. It's not an exciting launch. It's a very sort of functional one, but it's one that'll make quite a difference in places. The other thing that's kind of interesting to me is EKS Anywhere and ECS Anywhere. I think the sort of it's always easy for me to forget, being a sort of born in the cloud consultancy, to remember that there is so much on-premises infrastructure still running, and the slide at the Jassie's keynote with the sort of we're only, as an industry, we're only spending 4% of our IT spend on the cloud is just baffling to me, because we live in the cloud daily and we see the benefits of it, but the idea that we're now will in future, it's next year, I don't know. EKS timelines are a little bit unpredictable, or at least they were the first time around, but EKS Anywhere, like the idea that we can run a control plane using AWS APIs but in a data center, I think opens up a lot of opportunity for migration-ish, or like the sort of the thin end of the wedge for a migration, where you're kind of going, well, your data's all still in the data center, but we've just made it a lot easier to run. And you're like, well, you're already using Amazon a little bit. Why don't we take that and put it over there, where you don't have to run the hardware and pay people to change disks and all that sort of stuff? So the launches that have these sort of economic drivers or these business impact effects are the things that interest me. The tech stuff is cool. Like, it's great to be able to spin up a Mac Mini bare metal instance now. The thing that's cool about that, I think, is the fact that Nitro integrates with Mac Mini over Thunderbolt 3. Like that's cool engineering to me. The use case is CI for apps. That's not that interesting. Ultimately, be interested to see a Mac variant of workspaces, perhaps. That'd be pretty interesting. We work with some clients who are very hung up on the idea that we need to connect via their infrastructure that might be delivered over a virtual desktop environment, and a lot of my team use Macs, and so that would be a nice use case for that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to press pause for a second and get those who have recently joined us up to speed. So the show is called Howdy Partner, for those of you who have joined us in the past. And we have a hat. Yes.
Turns out I own a cowboy hat. In London. I don't know why.
I love it. I don't even have a cowboy hat, and I'm a little bit closer. Thanks for that, John. But yeah, we are on Howdy Partner reInvent edition. This show takes place every Monday and Wednesday from 2 to 4 Pacific time. John is joining us from London, so it's past his bedtime over there. So thank you for joining. But for those of you who want to catch up on past shows or catch up on our earlier chat with Stackery, the videos will be on demand, and I know that AM mentioned that in the chat, but videos will be on demand most likely later today, but definitely this week at the latest. So definitely check it out to see what's been going on, and join us Mondays and Wednesdays. So with that, now I'll segue back in. But yeah, so I think you make a really good point, John. Something, obviously we have all those showy launches, but something that really customers are looking for is those incremental things that make their lives easier, where they can spend more time on innovating and pursuing different opportunities, instead of on things that they have to do just because there isn't a tool or solution or process to do that. And so, I think that is a great point.
The thing that baffles me actually as a more, I've been in the industry 20 years now. As an older technologist, I kind of look at the appetite that people have just for building stuff that they don't need to build is still staggering to me. I think Larry Wall, the creator of Perl, talked about good sysadmins needing to have like hubris and laziness and something else. And laziness is kind of, it's probably a virtue. If you're lazy, you're not going to build all this stuff that you don't really need. Which is why the sort of, the Kubernetes thing, when that first started becoming talked about, was not that interesting to me, because it was just a lot of stuff that you had to do, and a lot of stuff that needed building. And it wasn't until quite a long time afterwards that there was a good story around the repeatable, reliable, well thought through builds of a Kubernetes platform. Obviously now with EKS, a lot of that problem is solved, and EKS Anywhere going to solve that in the data center for us as well. But there's just this other idea that you actually want to sit and build all of this stuff that you then have to spend a decade maintaining is baffling to me these days. But I was that guy 10 years ago, so I guess I sort of know where the instinct comes from, but I think we need to be challenging it a lot earlier.
Yeah, I've definitely found myself just banging my head against the wall with all of those little things you don't think about, like latency and reads. And you're like, do I really have to put a sleep here so that I can get an accurate response back? And then it just builds latency for the end user. And yeah, there's definitely been times where I'm like, I can't believe I have to build around this. But the nice thing is that once you do, it does all work perfectly, but it would just be so great if it would just work all at once, right then and there.
I think that things like the S3 consistency guarantee changes are a really great example of the platform moving in the direction that you would have expected it to be in when you first came to it. So S3 looks like a file system. Semantically very much not a file system previously, now much more like an actual file system. And so the kind of the way that you interact is what it looks like. And I think the sort of principle of least surprise for a developer is really important. Same with, I guess, the Aurora Serverless 2 stuff, the instantaneousness with which that can scale up, is it behaving the way that you sort of want it to as a developer. You don't have to then sort of build around these limitations. I think that's the benefit of the sort of cloud story in general, is that an army of other people are dealing with that. I don't need to worry about it. It's being taken care of. It's just sort of improving over time. And the people that are building that are substantially better at it than we are at building the systems on top of it. So that's heartening to me as a builder, I think, is to have such a strong foundation of stuff that just keeps getting better all the time in a way that I don't need to care about, really, for the most part.
Yeah, I think the way that you talk about the cloud really shows your experience having worked with AWS for so long. You definitely have that big picture of what businesses need, developers need, all from the ground up, which I think just shows why it's so important that you're an ambassador with us and that you're able to help other customers understand how to make a really smooth cloud journey.
I mean, I think the benefit of my experience as well is not just that I have experience in the cloud. I think it's because I've had experience before that. So I've been involved in building stuff in the data center. I know what's involved in sort of deploying highly available, well-built systems in physical locations, and that gives me a sort of comparison point for how much easier it is to do in the cloud. And that I think, someone who is starting their career now will probably never have to know how to crimp an RJ45 onto a Cat5 cable, or know quite what it's like to experience auditory hallucinations because you've been in a data center listening to aircon for 8 hours and you're going slowly mad. That's just not an experience that everybody has. We had a guy work for us 18 months ago, 2 years ago, something like that. Quite not sort of young, not his first job, but he was a fairly young guy. And this was a time when there was, I think there was a Cloudflare BGP problem. There was a sort of an injection of a BGP route that disrupted a bunch of traffic, and we sat down and walked it through on a whiteboard, and I sort of explained how BGP worked, and he was horrified. Like, he put his head in his hand and was like, "But how does any of the internet even work?" And you go, "Shh, yes, like don't question it too hard, because somewhere behind all of this is trust relationships and protocols that were built in the 70s before we needed to worry about, bad actors attacking them, that have no crypto or any of that kind of stuff on, BGP and DNS and all those kind of things. Are quite frightening, really, to think that we're still building on top of them. But they're mitigated against to an extent, but it's all a little bit precarious, to be honest. And being able to rely on building my own stuff in Amazon's ecosystem makes me feel a bit more comfortable about it, to be honest. I'm feeling a bit weird, like, with my cowboy hat on. I don't want to be seen as a cowboy. That's not the way forward.
Definitely for the. Oh my!
Oh,
it seems a bit more British, and it goes with my surname, so it seemed important to buy a topper as a topper.
That's awesome. I know. I feel like you can like change topics every time you switch your hat.
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk about something fancy now.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, and something I know you kind of shared a little bit about Scale Factory, but I know we've been kind of pulling you for your APN ambassador knowledge. So I would love to for you to share with our audience why and when would they work with your company?
Sure. Yeah. So we're entirely based in the UK. Most of our clients are in the UK, although we're happy to work in Northern Europe, and we have worked with clients who have some presence in the US as well. It's mostly time zone rather than geography. Actually, that's the challenge. You'd get in touch with us for a couple of reasons. One, that you were interested in building secure, well-architected platform, possibly for your SaaS business, probably in your kind of fintech or otherwise regulated space, and we'd help you do that, basically. So our engagement model for those sorts of things is one of collaboration. We work together in a sort of workshop fashion for a period of time with the team from the customer. We understand the nature of the application that they're building. We talk about how that works in AWS, what tools are best to use, how operations would work, how to build an appropriate security posture, and so forth. And then we would either step out, let the customer take the designs and run with it themselves, but maybe provide a support model. So we have a support and learning subscription, which is a sort of, you can think of it as an auto-scaled AWS solutions architect resource. So some of the teams that we work with don't have enough interesting AWS problems to hire a full-time SA Pro level person to work on their problems, and so we provide access to that on a sort of as needed basis with bits of training and a support function around it as well. Or we might augment the customer's team and build alongside them. So we've got a number of those sorts of engagements going on right now. Some really exciting stuff that I can't announce yet, but that sort of collaboration model is absolutely one of the things that we go for, and we do that in a small team. So rather than one engineer goes to one customer, we take a two or three of our team to a customer, and that sort of diversity of thought and the fact that you have to sort of necessarily generate documentation as part of the way that you communicate is a really powerful way of making sure that we're transferring knowledge as well as doing the work. Other things that we might do, well-architected reviews is a great way in to new business. So if a company is not sure that they're doing the right things in the cloud, or for larger organizations where they might have multiple teams all building stuff into AWS at the same time, well architected works really well as a kind of as a level setter. You're sort of saying, here's the bar, let's go and make sure that all of the teams are doing things in a sort of consistent way, and that's a good teaching tool for those sorts of organizations. Help them sort of decide what their shared approach to the cloud is and how it'll be governed and so forth. And we've done a lot of work standing up new control tower landing zone setups for self-service account vending, essentially. It's one of the things that we've done a lot of as part of a well-architected review and then sort of improvement work, is to sort of identify that there's a number of places where that would be beneficial. So providing that baseline of good practice and the guardrails for teams then to do more or less what they want in the accounts, as well, as long as they are not making bad decisions like putting public IP addresses on private systems and allowing SSH access to those sorts of things. So we see those sorts of tools as a really good lever to bring up the practice of a team within an organization to a level of quality and security, and also keep it there through kind of ongoing alarming and monitoring. So that sort of thing is a good deal of what we do right now.
No, that's great. And for those of you who, I know we just had a few people join us, John wears this hat for any of his streaming episodes. So if you ever hire him, he will be wearing that hat.
It's the first time I've put this on in a long time. It's usually a going out hat. It's not a staying at home hat, but it felt more appropriate than the cowboy hat. Actually, my daily hat, I do have another hat to put on. Seems to all be about the hats today, right? I'm from Yorkshire, which is sort of northern England, and this is the appropriate hat for where I'm from. You can think of Yorkshire as, I guess, the Texas of England, maybe. I don't know if that's massively unfair to either Yorkshire or to Texas, but there's a lot of farming and right-wing thinking in that part of the world, which is why I'm not there anymore.
I know you're definitely raising the bar on our Howdy Partner episode as far as hat changes, costume changes, topic changes. It's definitely, I feel like I need to step up my game for the next episode. I need to have some type of something changing throughout the episode.
You could go for different glasses, perhaps. I think different glasses frames would be quite a good look on you. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, and for our audience, if you would like to work with John, you can also request which hat he wears, and based off of each hat, there's a different personality and whatever services you need help with associated.
You two should definitely be my marketing team. Oh, you do have multiple classes.
I do.
Good job, Marie.
Just in case, you never know.
It's good to have redundancy of redundant fashions. It's important.
Yeah. Yeah,
do you want to talk security or migration to the cloud?
what is a security hat? That's the real question.
Yeah, exactly.
What hat would you wear for security?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe a beanie.
Maybe people can
it's
answer
all
in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I would say for security, a beanie kind of fits because it's very tight and usually knitted, so there's very few things. Yeah, very restricted. But who knows? Well, I wanted to make sure. I know that we've seen a lot of content. That's actually perfect. We should have thought about that. A hard hat. That's what construction workers use for security purposes. So definitely makes sense. But yeah, I wanted to make sure we covered all the cool stuff you wanted to talk about for reInvent. I know we kind of bounced around a bunch of different things, but was there anything else that caught your eye or that you're looking forward to for the rest of reInvent?
So one of the things that I'm kind of really interested in is the Graviton story. I think the sort of the general industry swing from Intel x86 over to ARM, like with Graviton 2 and with Apple's M1 Apple Silicon stuff, is interesting to watch, and to see those things happen almost coincidentally is quite interesting as well. I grew up in the UK. Over here, we had a computer manufacturer called Acorn, and the people who built Acorn went out to build ARM. So I was using computers with ARM chips in my teens, and so to see the sort of trajectory of ARM from being this kind of fairly niche thing in a computer that was mostly used in schools. To be honest, my parents were teachers, so that was my sort of access to computing, and to see that go from this sort of weird niche computer through to now they're in some devices, and then now they're in every mobile phone, and now they're also in all the tablets, and now they're in all of our server infrastructure and our laptops and stuff as well. It's a game changer, and the sort of performance changes, performance improvements that Apple Silicon seems to have made over and above the Intel equivalent is quite astounding, and the tech involved in them being able to translate from Intel applications to run natively on the M1 chip is pretty cool as well. And I was at Manchester University in the UK, and a number of my peers at university went on to work for the company that did that for Apple the first time round when they went from PowerPC to Intel. So there's a lot of history in that for me. In fact, my professor who ran the department of computer science that I was at, Professor Ferber, was one of the guys who built the ARM chip. So there's for me, there's a sort of emotional connection to the story of ARM kind of coming up, and to see it in machines that I can use today is a really exciting thing to see. And I think the cost improvements and everything as well, I think we'll be seeing much more in the way of ARM stuff. And so if there's more Graviton announcements coming, I guess we've seen another Graviton instance type, I think, with high performance networking. That's pretty cool to me in general. Interested to see more of that. Other than that, the other things that I like at reInvent are the infrastructure stuff. I like. I think in 2016 it was James Hamilton did Monday Night Live, and I think James has got a lot of extremely interesting experience and knowledge. I enjoy his blog as well as his talks. There's a lot of stuff in there, very thoughtful, thinking about power distribution for data centers and global fiber networks and all the sort of the interesting bits, the bits that sort of happen behind the scenes. My career started in the ISP industry, so we were building networks and BGP router setups and all that kind of thing. So I've had a bit of a hand in doing some of that on a small scale, and to see the same thing done at sort of planetary AWS scale is really interesting. So the infrastructure keynote, Peter DeSantis next Thursday, I think next week. Looking forward to that. I will probably try and catch up with Abby Fuller's talk on Nitro, because Nitro is kind of interesting to me as well from an architectural perspective. Just nice to be able to I guess, know how the sausage is made a little bit, but without obviously the level of detail that gives away the secret sauce. It's just nice to sort of. I like understanding how things work. That's partly why I'm here in the tech industry. It's a sort of motivating factor for me, and I think if you have a good mental model for how things are built, you can make assumptions about how they can be used that are probably right, and so understand the component parts is a way for me to build that mental model and to be able to offer useful guidance to customers on the basis of that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I promise that we did not set you up for that, but you gave a really great rundown of what's to come and things to be excited about and sessions and time and who's hosting them. So yeah, thanks for that.
Well researched. I mean, the keynotes I've kept an eye on. I probably won't be watching the ML keynote particularly closely. The ML hour and a half of the Jassy keynote, as has been for the last few years, has been sort of not that exciting to me. we don't really work in that space, and so a lot of the launches are. I mean, I don't know what half of it means, to be honest. The new chip types they were talking about yesterday, I have no idea what that is. But I do like seeing the results of it. So DevOps Guru. As a companion piece to Guard Duty, which is really cool. I think we the day we turned on Guard Duty, and we were working with a client who was working for a bank in Asia somewhere, and the guy that we were working with had been working with us in London, and then flew to Asia, Singapore, I think, to go and meet a client. And Guard Duty lit up and said, "Hey, this guy's not usually in Asia. What's going on?" And that sort of insight with so few kind of weird false positives is really good. So to see that sort of ML application move to things like, oh, the database is throwing a lot of errors, that looks weird, or your landers are being throttled more often than they would usually be, is a really good way of hopefully being able to get a jump on some of those sorts of things before they become actual production outages, which I think is the name of the game, really. I mean, as we've seen with well-architected teams are not really building response plans for those sorts of things, but that's a people problem rather than a tech problem, and a people problem that I think we all need to probably find a better way of solving. I think it's odd to me to have worked in essentially infrastructure for 2 decades and to still walk into customers and find that they're not thinking about operations in any sort of meaningful sense, and don't really want to in some cases as well. Like getting people to care about it is part of the battle, I think. But it's that's an area that I think we'll be investing in the next year.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I did want to, I know we're kind of inching in on time, so I wanted to make sure to circle back to your work as an APN ambassador. And I think you mentioned when I got to chat with you earlier, just the community engagement that you do. I think you were mentioning you're one of the biggest and one of the first AWS user groups in your area.
Yeah, so I can't lay claim to that personally because I only joined them in February, and since then I've been these were in-person events typically, and since February we've taken them online. My time investment on that is I've got good at OBS and video and Twitch, so we've been sort of taking those online in an extremely slickly produced fashion, which almost as good as what AM is doing, in fact, with this channel. The user group is the AWS User Group UK. It was the first user group in the UK. Is now, I think we're at 7,000 members or something.
Oh wow!
There are other user groups in the UK who would probably say that we should call it the AWS London user group because most of the people are in London, and that's probably true. I wouldn't necessarily disagree, but that's not my call to make. The user group, we run a meetup every 2 months, and that group is, those meetups are typically people from businesses who use AWS talking about the business problems that they've solved with AWS and how they've done that. So it tends not to be a pure technical, here is how you do build Kubernetes on AWS. It's not really sort of about just the technology. It's about the use of the technology as applied to a business problem, which is a really good perspective to take. One of the things that I've been sort of involved in since I started was concentrating on the diversity aspect of it. Again, I can't take credit for all of that. We've got great people on that group who are sort of doing much more in that initiative, but we've intentionally gone out and tried to improve representation on the stage, the digital stage, for people who are not white dudes. In fact, it's really, really nice for me to be in the minority on this stream, actually, because that doesn't happen very often. But we've had a lot of great women speakers in the last 2 or 3 meetups, bringing their experience. And we recently surveyed the entire user group to get a handle on sort of what are the demographics of the group and how can we better support, for example, people with hearing difficulties or mobility difficulties. Because when you're running a user group that's in a physical space, you are probably unintentionally excluding people by not thinking about, well, let's just get a closed captioner in and do some closed captioning to make it a bit easier for people who don't hear so well to see what's going on. And I think the thing you learn is that the more you provide support for people who need that sort of day to day, the better the experience is for everybody else. There've been a handful of conferences in London that have started doing closed captioning in their physical events. And when you're at a conference, your attention drifts sometimes, or you check Twitter, or you're not quite sure what's going on. Being able to look at a screen and see the last sort of 5 or 6 sentences transcribed is actually really good for me as a person who's not hard of hearing. So it's something that we're quite conscious of, and I think part of the reason for building the organizing team for that user group was to give us a bit more headspace for doing things like that, other than just, oh God, we've got to find some speakers for next month. How do we do that? Which I think was the sort of scramble beforehand. So it's a great user group. The other folks that are involved in that also great. In fact, the entirety of the people who run user groups in the UK are a friendly bunch. There's an initiative, I think in EMEA at least, to run there's a Slack with all of the people who run AWS user groups talking about that. There was a session, I think yesterday actually, for a reinvent session for people who run user groups in general, talking about how can AWS support us better, what do we need, and that sort of thing. So it's really good to have those relationships and be able to ask for help in that way. It's really satisfying as a person in the community to have a line into such a big organization to get those sorts of that sort of support is really good. And for me, the ambassador network looks like that as well. It's been good for my kind of my business relationships with AWS as well, to be able to say that's something I'm involved in. So really good.
No, that's awesome. And thanks, John. I know we're getting close to time, but I did want to thank you for your work as an APN ambassador, and then also as a APN partner. And I think that people like you help AWS do better, but also help evangelize, because we obviously are one company, but we can't reach all of those spaces. And so thanks for the work that you've been doing to kind of reach those spaces that we can't quite meet. But so one of our traditions, which I don't know if you saw when we had the fake send off, is so we have the real send off, and Hanara is going to take it away for us.
Okay, so John, why don't you choose off the 3? We have Giddy Up, Y'all Come Back Now, and Happy Trails. Which one would you like to do?
Yeah, I was trying to find any one of those that had a particularly Yorkshire version that I could give you instead, but I can't actually think of any one of those. So I guess we'll go with Happy Trails, but I'll drop the H because in Yorkshire we do that. So Happy Trails.
I do think you should do a hat change for well.
I should do a hat change for this one. Yeah, okay. And I mean, I guess if we're doing the Howdy Partner thing, I should do that really. Happy Trails.
Awesome.
All right. Happy trails, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks so much for joining, John. And you can find more sessions throughout reInvent for Howdy Partners. So please tune in again.